Over the years, I have been to many different Comic-Con conventions throughout Texas and other areas. For the past 2 years, I have gone to Alamo City Comic-Con at the Fremont Coliseum, I believe. But this year, they held it at the Alamo Dome. And let me tell you, this year, not only for the venue, but for the things that I got to experience there, was my best Comic-Con experience I've ever had. Let's get into it. The reason I like the Alamo Dome the most for the convention was its accessibility. You see, I have to go in a wheelchair because the venues are so large, and even with the progress I've made at physical therapy, it's still walking a Comic-Con floor is borderline out of the question. It's just, no. And it was so nice to be able to just move around with freedom. Granted, I had to yell, "Excuse me," and "sorry" a lot because, people cluster together, but that's normal. That's not a major issue. That's not a problem. So, I utterly enjoyed that one. I thought it was one of the best places, I hope in years to come, that they have it at that venue because it was great. And for the producers, get at it. Keep going. Use that convention if you still can. Based on the, oh god, I don't even want to get into it. There was a controversy at the con. This did happen on the day I was there. I did not witness this. I read about it on the news, so if you want to look it up, just look up Alamo City Comic-Con controversies 2018. Should find it within 10 seconds. I just don't really want to talk about it, so moving on to the next one. Accessibility, right. That was one of the greatest things. Of course, now I'm repeating myself, so let's get into what I actually did there and the things that I experienced and what made this Comic-Con great. Well, for one thing, the staff were very nice. They weren't, go to the back of the line, even though you've got a massive wheelchair and it's hard to maneuver around. There was none of that. There was a lot of consideration given to everyone in the wheelchair. People that were in a wheelchair, for the most part, were in the front row, which, that was really nice. I have to admit, that I really enjoyed that. And it was also nice not to have to maneuver so much. So, let's get into the panels I visited. Now, I was able to record a little bit of some of the panels, which you will see at the end of the video, but my arms got too tired and I just could not record the whole thing. I did try, but the two panels I went to were the Jeff Goldblum panel, the three panels I went to were the Jeff Goldblum panel, the Batman the Animated Series panel, and the Jim Lee panel. So, the Jeff Goldblum one I didn't really like. Jeff Goldblum is a weird guy in my opinion, which is cool. He's a cool guy. That sounded weird. What I meant was, while Jeff Goldblum is a little weird, I would have really appreciated a Q&A. I don't like it when panels don't include a Q&A. It's just personal opinion, nothing personal. He was just one of my favorite actors, and I really wanted to ask him some questions to do that, but I didn't get to. But, moving on. The Batman the Animated Series panel. Now, this panel had Kevin Conroy, Diane Pershing, and Lauren Lester. So that's Batman, Poison Ivy, and Robin, for those of you that don't know. This panel was absolutely amazing. It was an absolute blast. Oh my gosh. And, that panel was just amazing. And I cannot rave about it enough. I learned so much about the series. Lots of behind-the-scenes things. Lots of takes from the actors. It was amazing. And from the people who inspired me to get into acting, it was one of the greatest things I've ever experienced. And then I also met Kevin Conroy, which was great. I mean, don't need to rant more about that. and I got some stuff, and just typical con experience. But the openness of the floor, the quality of panels, oh my gosh, they had Rick Moranis and Arnold Schwarzenegger there, as well as Jeff Goldblum, the guys from Batman the Animated Series, the guys from Toy Story, William Shatner, the guy who played William Riker in Star Trek The Next Generation. I mean, this was probably the greatest guest list, at least of the ones I've seen, outside of San Diego or New York. So I just really wanted to share my experience, and without further ado, here's what I could record of the footage. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and, well, enjoy my awkwardness. Bye!
Cool, yeah. Oh, God. That was, I mean, none of you know that, right? The New Adventures of Mighty Mouse?
I know that, but I'm older than most of these people, so. Yeah, but, well, let's talk. We could obviously go back and talk about careers, but we're here to talk, everybody's here to talk about Batman. So when you guys got contacted about this, I would imagine at the time, because up until that point,
the cast was incredible. Every week, more interesting people would come in. So it was interesting, because even though you only have your voice to tell the story, so it's not the same as working on stage.
No.
They didn't want it to become cartoony. And Andrea was really wonderful at guiding you to exactly the realm they wanted to. It's a funny line you walk, where you really only have your voice to tell the story, but you can't color it so much that it becomes artificial or becomes cartoony. But it can't be so flat like you do on film, because you don't have your body to tell the story with. So it has to be slightly enhanced. But it's a funny line, and I think you got the same impression. A lot of people who come in, who do it for the first time, from film or TV, wouldn't get it. And they think they were giving this great performance, and you think, they just don't get it. They think the camera's picking something up, but the camera's not there.
That's right, yeah.
So you could tell when people would get it, people wouldn't get it.
You want to comment, Laura?
Yeah, as you said, I started in the late 70s, so the very first...
You must be old. I was 10 when I started. I was precocious.
You guys know Hanna-Barbera, of course?
Yeah.
So I was working at Hanna-Barbera, and by the time this show came around, which was like 13 years into I had been doing this, it was just, to me, it was just like, oh, this would be a really great gig. This would be really fun. Really enjoyed it. There was an extra element to it because I was a huge Batman fan from the 60s. I lived through that show. I always thought at the end of Tuesday night's episode they were going to die. And I had to watch Wednesday to see if they'd come back. And they always did. It's so weird. But anyway, so by the time I auditioned for this show, it was not what we perceive it today, which is like, oh my God, the greatest animated show ever. We're still talking about it 27 years later. Nobody knew that. We had no idea. It just was a great job, and I was very sad when it ended, but it was time to move on to another job. And now, here we are 27 years later, and we're not moving on at all.
And I have a completely different story. It's joy, it's serendipity. I was hired to do the show, to do a couple of incidental, a reporter and a nurse or whatever. And the person who was supposed to do Poison Ivy didn't show up for whatever reason. I have no idea why. Had to cancel, I don't know. And Andrea Romano asked me if I'd like to audition on the spot. And I looked at the copy, and I looked at the picture, and I said, oh yeah, I can do this. She's sexy, so I have my cosmetic voice, which I use all the time on commercials. And then she's also very smart. She's a PhD, and I kind of sound smart when I talk, I've been told. And I put the two together into Poison Ivy, and I got the job. Now, remember, this was before the thing even went on the air. We record before they animate. So I don't think I knew all of the stuff that Kevin was given, all that information about the darkness and the this, and I didn't. It was just a character. It was beautifully written. The scripts were wonderful, and the animation stuff that I saw was amazing, and I thought, what a great gig. And that was it. Whenever they called me, because it was Poison Ivy's turn to be the villain, I showed up and had a great gig. I had Mark on this side and Ephraim on this side. Whenever we recorded together in those days. And I had a joyous experience, but it was just a job. I mean, and I don't mean just a job, I mean a job, you know.
Really good job.
A really fabulous job, voiceover working, if this is how you can make your life, I mean, excuse me, is about the best thing you can do. So, that's my story. It's a little different, you know, but boy, and then to be told all these years later, by the way, you were my childhood. Oh, what that does. It's so amazing. So that's my story.
And one thing I want to
Stop.
clarify something that Diane was saying.